of Change News.
This is Voice of Change Radio News. I'm Amanda Kumalo. Thank you for joining us. A look at stories making the headlines. Diplomats call for immediate removal of sanctions. Zanu PF Congress starts today. In business news, ZETDC begins work on power line for largest steel plant. In regional and international news, former Niger leader slams international community for neglecting Sahel insurgency. In sports, Nyoni rallies Northern Region women's football. The news in detail. Progressive nations from across the world have added their voices to the growing calls for the unconditional removal of illegal sanctions that were imposed by Western nations on Zimbabwe to reverse the land reform program. Embassies and diplomats expressed themselves on social media platforms and in physical meetings during yesterday's clearly successful SADC Anti-Sanctions Day that has found resonance with most countries. The overwhelming disapproval of the sanctions that resonated across the continent and beyond, from China to Russia, drowned in attempts by erstwhile colonizers to justify the illegal economic sanctions that have for 2 decades constricted Zimbabwe's economic growth potential. On Twitter, China and Russia, the global powers realigning geopolitics to end Western unipolar dominance, were unequivocal in their denunciation of the sanctions. Meanwhile, in a related development, Zimbabweans from across different backgrounds and every region yesterday marched against the illegal economic sanctions, sending a clear message to the Western world that their punitive measures should be immediately removed. This followed the commemorations of the SADC Anti-Sanctions Day that were embraced with zest and zeal by ordinary people. In Harare, thousands of people led by the Permanent Secretary for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Mr. Tafadzwa Muguti, thronged the United States Embassy in Westgate, calling for the immediate removal of the illegal embargo. It was a hive of activity with people from all walks of life engaging in various activities such as singing, chanting slogans, dancing, while others were holding placards in protest against the sanctions. The 7th Zanu PF Congress rose to life in Harare today and will begin in earnest with a meeting of the Politburo, followed by a central committee in Daba tomorrow before the official opening on Friday. All Politburo members arrived yesterday, while Central Committee members are expected today ahead of the 118th meeting of the party's highest decision-making organ tomorrow. All other Congress delegates are expected to arrive tomorrow ahead of the official opening of the 7th National People's Congress by Zanu PF First Secretary President Mnangagwa on Friday. In a statement, Zanu PF Secretary for Information and Publicity, Comrade Christopher Muchangwa, said all is set for the Congress. He also said there will be an ordinary session of the Central Committee tomorrow. More than 3,500 delegates are expected to attend at the event running under the theme, Building a Prosperous Zimbabwe, Leaving No One and No Place Behind. President Mnangagwa has commended churches for complementing government efforts to bring unity, peace, and social cohesion in the country through delivering messages of righteousness, uprightness, and good moral values. He said churches were playing an important role in ensuring society upholds good morals, while government was preoccupied with improving citizens' livelihoods. President Mnangagwa said this yesterday in Bikita while addressing mourners during the burial of his grandson Yasha Mafidi Mnangagwa, who died on Sunday due to respiratory complications. In business news, The Zimbabwe Electricity Transmission and Distribution Company, ZETDC, has embarked on a topographic survey to determine the route along with the 100-kilometer transmission line from Sheld substation in Kwekwe to the new steel plant in Manize near Mvuma will be constructed. Dinson Iron and Steel Company, DISCO, which is a subsidiary of the world's largest stainless steel producer, Tsingshan Holdings, is building Africa's largest steel plant in Manize at a capital outlay of $1 billion. The plant will have the capacity to produce 1.2 million tons of steel per annum. ZETDC, the distribution arm of State Power Utilities ZESA, intends to construct the 330 kilovolt transmission line at a cost of $66 million through a loan to be funded by DISCO. In an interview, ZETDC acting managing director, Engineer Howard Choga, said the topographic survey on where the electric towers for the transmission line will be constructed was 80% complete. Moving on to regional and international news. The former president of Niger, Mohamed Issouf, has warned of dire consequences that befell the Sahel, a region plagued by acute insurgency. Issouf said that the war in the Sahel has been neglected by the world and instead more attention given to Ukraine, terming it a double standard. The former leader was speaking during the just concluded 8th edition of the Dakar International Forum. He further said he held the international community responsible for the situation in the Sahel following their military intervention in Libya. The war's impact has been felt strongly in Africa, where food prices rose as imports, notably of cereals and fertilizer, were restricted. And finally, in sports, the Minister of Women Affairs, Communities, Small and Medium Enterprise Development, Stembiso Nyoni, who is the co-patron of the Northern Region Women's Football, says she's happy about renewed and ambitious effort being taken by the Northern Region Women's Football to empower the girl child through sport. She said this during the launch and official draw of the inaugural Northern Region Women's Football School of Excellence Selection Tournament on Saturday evening at the National Sports Stadium. Minister Nyoni and her co-patron Minister of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare, Paul Mavima, attended the launch. That ends this news bulletin.
Voice of Change News.